Good afternoon and a warm welcome to our distinguished guests, our President, board members and speakers. CSR today is no longer just about donations or compliance. It is about responsibility, accountability and impact. Beyond giving responsible CSR and due diligence, the theme for our conclave today is not just a theme, but a reminder that true corporate responsibility lies in ensuring that every initiative is thoughtful, transparent, and sustainable. As we dive into this conclave, let us reflect on how due diligence strengthens the bond between corporations and communities, building trust that lasts beyond any single project. I would like to share that the QR 10 cards placed on your table, which provides access to your agenda along with the brief profiles of our esteemed speakers. To open this interesting conclave, I would now invite Mr. Rajiv Anand, President, Bombay Chamber, and MD and CEO, IndusInd Bank, to deliver the welcome address.
Our guest of honor, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, former Secretary of Government of India and Senior Advisor Deloitte and Dua Consulting in Mumbai. Esteemed speakers, my dear friends in the audience, good afternoon to all of you and a very warm welcome. It is my privilege and pleasure to address this very august group. At the outset, I'd like to brief you about the Bombay Chamber. Bombay Chamber has been playing a proactive role in India's development over the last 189 years. The Chamber serves as an effective vehicle of communication between regulatory bodies, corporate world, and society at large. I have the privilege to mention that of its several thousand members, encompassing a wide spectrum of industry houses, 1/3 represent large corporates, and the balance 2/3 represent the SME sector. It is very interesting to note that more than a dozen large corporates have been our members for the last 100 years. Over the years, the Chamber has evolved from being a representative body of businesses to a proactive catalyst for sustainable and inclusive development. Recognizing the growing needs for businesses to address social and environmental challenges, the Chamber has significantly expanded its focus on CSR, positioning itself as a thought leader and enabler in this domain with an active CSR committee that acts as a vital bridge between enterprise and social good. In 2014, India became the first country to make CSR mandatory through the Companies Act 2013. In the past decade, the landscape of CSR has evolved significantly in terms of scale, structure, impact, and accountability. Maharashtra has always been a land of enterprise, innovation, and social consciousness. The state's growth has been defined not only by industrial progress, but also its commitment to inclusive and sustainable development. And CSR has played a pivotal role in this journey, complementing government efforts and strengthening communities across the state. According to statistics, Maharashtra led the country with a CSR inflow of 6,000 crores, making it the highest recipient among all states. This amount constituted approximately 17% of the total spends in India, which stood at about 34,000 crores. Over the decades, CSR has shifted from fragmented donations to structured long-term programs with measurable outcomes. Companies have moved towards conducting need assessments, implementing monitoring and evaluation frameworks, and aligning CSR with Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. In fact, many large firms have integrated CSR into their core business strategies and have developed flagship CSR initiatives. Recent amendments to the CSR rules, notably in 2021, have enhanced governance. Registration of implementing agencies have been made mandatory. Impact assessment required for projects over 1 crore and making it mandatory for companies to disclose CSR activities in their annual board reports and on their websites has been useful. These steps have improved transparency, accountability, and standardization in CSR practices across the country. Later today, we will be releasing our first CSR Yearbook, where we have featured 12 such CSR projects. Each project featured in the book is not just an intervention, but a testament to the vision and resilience of each of these projects. They showcase how businesses, when guided by purpose and responsibility, can create lasting impact. What makes these initiatives truly inspiring is their rootedness in the need of the people and their alignment with the larger development agenda of the Government of Maharashtra. From rural villages to urban neighborhoods, CSR projects have strengthened the social fabric and built pathways towards a more equitable future. Despite the progress, several challenges remain, like uneven distribution of CSR funds, with urban and already developed states receiving more, inadequate focus on outcome versus output, underutilization of funds by many eligible companies, and limited capacity of smaller NGOs to meet compliance requirements. We hope today's conclave will deliberate on some of these challenges and move the needle on the solutions needed. As leaders, we must continue to view CSR not just as an obligation, but as an opportunity to align business success with societal progress in our shared journey towards inclusive growth. I'd like to end by making a brief announcement. We were looking forward to the presence of our chief guest, the Honorable Chief Minister, who is a great champion of the CSR movement in Maharashtra. He was supposed to be here at our conclave today. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen meetings, he's unable to join us. But we were fortunate to receive his message for our CSR Yearbook, which we will display on screen now. We thank the Honorable Chief Minister for his support and his kind words of encouragement. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. I would like to invite Ms. Aloka Majumdar, MD, Global Head of Philanthropy and Head of Sustainability India, HSBC, and Chairperson of the Bombay Chamber CSR Committee for the theme setting.
Thank you so much, Shruti. Actually delighted because, we've just completed 10 years of CSR and we have Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee with us. So 10 years, he's the architect of the CSR law, section 135. And thank you so much, Dr. Chatterjee, for making time and coming here today to, speak with us and some very interesting things which you're going to share with the audience today. Thank you so much, Rajiv, for this, for the introduction. And what I think we worked very closely with the Bombay Chambers, and the hall today basically says that the interest one has for CSR here. So thank you so much. I cannot but not mention Sandeep Khosla, Sandeep, a dear friend, working very closely with him, and two team members, Tina and Shruti, who have done a wonderful job of putting this together. So I'm doing the vote of thanks at the beginning, and then they'll do the address later. And of course, two very dear friends in this audience whom we are going to hear, because they'll add a lot of value, Dr. Anand Bang and Luis Miranda, who are going to speak, and I know that they're very candid in terms of what they're going to speak about, and we are really looking forward to that conversation so that we all carry real material when we go back after today's conclave. And last but not the least, guests and many friends in the audience whom we met outside and we'll more, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, some new friends too. So first of all, it's always heartening to be here. Because, this conclave, I've been chairing this committee for the last 3 years, and it's been a great learning journey for me as well. Because, the way CSR is evolving in this country, it is on year we are learning so much. So to be engaged with this, to engage with the right audience and the stakeholders have been perhaps the biggest learning that we've had through my engagement with this committee. And the second thing is, somebody was asking me that why do you have a theme? Because there is too many things to discuss when it comes to CSR. So I said that, we can't discuss everything. So that's why, one theme helps us to kind of steer more constructive conversation, but you have the Bombay Chambers who's going to take themes year after year so that, we look at what is currently most important for us, and then we take it forward and take all the inputs that we want on that specific subject. So today is no exception. Today we have, all of you know that we are going to discuss due diligence, a term some of us like, some of us say, oh dear, because it's such a process, and the process is kind of becoming more cumbersome year on year. Just before I get into due diligence and what we are going to hear over the next couple of years, I just wanted to mention one thing. We were talking to Dr. Chatterjee about CSR, and while we realized that as far as corporate social risk, but the idea of giving actually goes back a long time as far as India is concerned. But what the Act has done is actually propelled us to the forefront of responsible nation building. I think that's the big difference from giving to nation building. And I think all of us in the room today, I think that's the contribution that we're looking at when we are discussing CSR. 2-3 things in terms of what we are going to hear in the next few hours. But some thoughts on due diligence and why due diligence is so important. I was Googling why due diligence. And some very interesting things. All of you can Google and it will give you the same things. It will talk about mitigating risks. We don't talk about much risk when we talk about CSR. We say everything is going really well. At the end of the year, we are all doing great stuff. I think this is something we really need to speak about. We need to speak about risk. We need to speak about what is not going right, what is not going to work. I think that's all important here. And I think since Mr. Rajiv Anand is here, is with a financial institution, we are also here. I think we all understand risk very well because we are in the business of risk. So therefore, I think there needs to be more conversation and more a dialogue on how to capture risk, and for the not-profit sector to tell us the risks that you face when you're implementing programs at your end. And that's something which is going to be, I think, a critical one. Then you hear about everything of protecting investments, informed decision-making, etc. But what actually I thought was very critical is negotiation advantage. I think, in due diligence, good due diligence will allow both not-profits as well as corporates. They will give you negotiation advantage, which is going to be very important because I know many of you who represent the non-profit sector here, you are the most difficult task for you to raise funds. And as far as for our end, don't think it's easy to give funds. It's as difficult because you have to convince a board and then you have to give the money. So therefore, I think the due diligence is going to be a very critical tool for all of us to get that negotiation advantage. The other one is not a surprise. If you're going from 8,000 crore to 35,000 crore that you spoke about and more money means the requirement for better due diligence. So that's almost, again, a non-negotiable thing. I think these are the two critical things that I took away today when I was going through, why the importance of due diligence. Next is what. Won't elaborate much on what because we have colleagues from the sector, both from corporates and for the non-profit sector to talk about, operational, legal, programmatic, all kinds of due diligence. So that's something. But I think how piece is something I thought I will just highlight. How everybody's talking about technology. So I think technology is going to play because we are talking about massive data. When it comes to CSR, we are talking about data from, NGO data, corporate data, investments data, people data, because you're reaching to the base of the pyramid, millions of people. So therefore, I think in this due diligence process, AI technology is going to be a very important piece. But due diligence also requires cost. And this is more for our corporate colleagues who are here, including me and my team, some of whom are here. The fact is that as corporates, when you're doing CSR, you just can't ask the non-profit to do certain things when you know that there is a cost attached to this. Who is going to pay for it? We really need to deliberate and think about it and see that when you're doing due diligence, reporting, measuring, everything has a cost, and who pays for that cost? I think that's something which will be an important thing for all of us to understand. I think the last thing I want to highlight is the fact that we are all in this room dealing with very complex issues because in my experience in working in the sector, I think the complexities that we are trying to address is really, really difficult one. And therefore, it is important that we co-design whatever we're doing in CSR. And in the bank, we have a term called KYC. If you enter a bank, you will know that that's the main thing for us. Know your customer is your main thing. I think in this case, know your partner is going to be a very important thing for us in due diligence. And when it comes to due diligence, we only think single-minded, we only think non-profits. I can tell you the non-profit should also know your donor. So the due diligence should not be one-sided, it should be both from the donor's point of view as well as the donee's point of view. And it is very important for us to know our partners. So this is something that I thought that, all of us can work towards. So just a few scattered thoughts on due diligence. I'll now finish quickly. I won't take too much time. I think we will hear from all, the speakers today. If there's time for question and answers, do that. If you don't have time, at least go out while you're networking. You can have your questions answered or even later. So please take full advantage of this session. The last thing I want to say is that of an interesting guidebook which Bombay Chambers is actually taking out, and like I mentioned, this is my 3rd year, and this is a detailed guidebook with the objective of assisting non-profits on how to identify the right CSR partner. It's a big deal. So I just want to congratulate the team. This book should be ready by January for release. So we are really looking forward to this, and I know it's a very, very difficult piece of work, but hope this will be useful for us, corporate partners, as well as for the non-profit sector. So I would like to take this moment to thank every one of you and for sparing your time to join this program today. And my heartfelt thanks to all the speakers who've made time to come and share their thoughts with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Majumdar, for your insights on Beyond Giving Responsible CSR and Due Diligence. Now I'd like to invite Rajiv Anand, President, Bombay Chamber, MD and CEO of IndusInd Bank, to present a memento.
Come to the middle.
Now I would like to invite our guest of honor, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, former Secretary to the Government of India and currently Senior Advisor with Deloitte India and Dua Consulting, to share his insights.
Very good afternoon to you. Let me at the outset profusely thank the Bombay Chamber of Commerce for giving me this opportunity to be here with you this afternoon and to share a few thoughts on the way that CSR has developed over these last 10 years and what is in store for us maybe over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. Let me try and reflect a little bit. What were the initial thought process behind the legislation? There are many practitioners in this room who are fully aware of Section 135 and the many rules that have come thereafter. But what was the origin of that thinking? Why do we have a CSR law? What are the main facets of that law which were completely Indian, which were not available to us in any part of the planet anywhere, or in any of the thinking of CSR anywhere on the globe? Many of you who are familiar with CSR academic work would know that the entire thought process of CSR began in the US. All of CSR writing was in the universities of the United States of America. The first so-called father of CSR was Howard Bowen, who wrote The Social Responsibilities of the Businessman, 1853. Carroll's famous pyramid is of American origin. The one and only Michael Porter, his idea of shared value, is all in the US. If all that had happened, and John L. Kington, People, Planet, Profit, the UK, 1998, all of this thinking is Western. Then why India and why Indian? What is the Bharatiya model? And what are the unique items of that Bharatiya model? Number one, a popular Chatterjeeism, from backroom to boardroom. We brought CSR from the informal to the formal. The best minds of a company sit on the board. It is the board that must deliberate its CSR agenda. And therefore, my thinking was that if I promoted CSR into a board level activity, it would not only receive the importance that it deserves, but also the thinking, the thought process, the application of mind of the best in the company now comes into CSR. That was principle one. All new. Number two, if companies beyond a certain threshold of profitability were to indulge in CSR, then how much should they spend? Remember, at the end, the whole Chatterjee principle is based on the spending law. How much are you spending? And proportionately, how is that related to a proportion of your profits? And therefore, the thought POP, percentage of profit, item number two. Item number three, corporates are corporates. We don't expect their employees and their board members to go into the remote villages of India and to stay there for indefinite periods of time to implement the program that they are conceiving. So who should actually implement at ground level? And it occurred to me then, and I did this research at the time, if I were to say that those so-called, in corporate terminology with due apologies, the chappal and jhola walas, they are the honored people who actually stay with communities, among communities. They feel the heartbeat and the pulse of what communities need. Should they not be the implementers? And I said, if I say this in the law or in the rules, are there enough? Are there enough good NGOs or civil society organizations? And I knew back then, as I do know now, 3.3 million NGOs registered in India, the largest in the world. We all know that the second largest NGO establishment exists in our neighboring state, Bangladesh. But they are less than half of us. With such a large quantum of NGOs available to us, corporates would have no difficulty in finding implementing agencies. That was number 3. Number 4, many corporates told me at the time, and we had hundreds of consultations with corporates, they said, Dr. Chatterjee, what is this that you're preaching to us about? We've been doing CSR from the ages. CSR runs in our blood, in our veins, in our DNA. We've been doing it for ages. What are you writing all this crap for? And the answer there was very simple. If you are doing it, can you show to me in your annual report? If you are doing it, can you show it to me on your website? If you are doing it, are you declaring it to the whole wide world? And the answer was, when we do good things, we don't talk about them much. We conceal what we do. And I said, sorry. If you're doing good, I believe in transparency and accountability. Tell it to the world. Reveal it to the world. Reveal it in the public domain. Talk about it in your annual report. Let the world know what you are doing. And most importantly, how much are you spending? That was number 4. Number 5. This is also axiomatic. All CSR is on project mode. If it is not a project, it is not CSR. Why project mode? Because project has these 4 or 5 elements through which you can track what you are doing. The baseline survey, the need assessment. Why are you doing what you are doing? Does that community really need this? 2, funding. How much are you allocating to the project? 3, documentation. Are you maintaining the documentation from day 1 of the project so that you know how it progresses? Number 4, monitoring. How closely are you monitoring the unfolding of that project? It's not a one-day event. And number 5, we used to call it evaluation in my time. Now we call it social impact assessment. Exactly how much difference are you making on the ground? Can you quantify it and qualitatively assess it? If you don't know whether you have created any impact, you wasted your money and the nation's wealth. When we began this thought process and we set the financial thresholds, as you rightly said, Aloka, there were about 8,000 companies that we contemplated and about 10,000 crores. Today, we have more than 28,000 companies. We have just crossed the 36,000 crore mark. It's become a sector of the economy. When the SDGs finish, and this is my wish, they finish in 2030, India would have crossed 50,000 crores. Where have we gone from where we began? Imagine now how many people derive their livelihoods from CSR. How many live, breathe, and actually dream of CSR on a daily basis. And related to all of this, the implementers, the donors, the corporates, a whole body of academic thought, the rigor of powerful academics. Every university, every MBA course across the entire spectrum of this country is doing something on CSR. Imagine the potential of this thought process. Also, imagine the professionalization that CSR has brought. When we try and recruit a finance person, what does HR do? It looks at somebody who is a chartered accountant or an MBA finance. When you look for an HR person, you look for an MBA in HR. When you look for CSR, who do you recruit? And it is with that thought process that way back in 2014, I began the first batch, and I think some of them are here today, of the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, 11 months certification course taught entirely online. Those who participated in this batch are one below board today in many companies. We are proud to have unleashed a whole generation of CSR professionals. What is CSR therefore today? Something so powerful, so motivating, so connected to the human psyche of giving that it has caught on like wildfire. Today, had we heard the Chief Minister, you would have seen how invested the political leadership is in CSR. How political leadership from the central government to all state governments are so committed to using CSR for real change on the ground. Because at the end, CSR is for what? For providing a better quality of life to the underprivileged, to the marginalized, to the voiceless, to the poor. And therefore, any corporate entity which wants to take up CSR, what is my advice? Always begin with the beneficiary in mind. Who is that deprived person? Who is that individual at the grassroots for whom I am doing this so that a direct benefit reaches that person, not indirect? You must convince yourself that that person is going to be benefited out of the money that I am giving to an implementing agency to conduct a grassroots program. That is the essence of CSR. And you might ask, public sector was doing this for 4 years, between 2010 and 2014. Why bring private sector into CSR at all? What's the rationale? What's the raison d'etre for bringing corporates into CSR? And the simple answer I gave then, the simple answer I give now, it gives the corporate sector the most unique opportunity ever to participate in the inclusive development of our nation. Isn't that the job of government? Of course it is. Because corporate is doing CSR, government is not rolling up its development agenda. Compared to what government spends, we spend a pittance. But corporates have the agility, the capacity to innovate, the flexibility, the ability to go the last mile. I was in the bureaucracy for a humongous 41 years. And I understood on a daily basis the frustration I felt that to implement government programs at the last level was so incredibly tough. Because to steer the ship of government and change the direction by half a degree takes 10 years. In the corporate sector, we can do it much faster. I left government in 2016. 9 years I have been in the private sector completely. And I can see how much of a difference there is in the way we govern and in the way we operate. This is CSR till now. What do we think might happen over the next 4 or 5 years? And one or two of those ideas have been spoken about. Rajiv rightly pointed out that whereas Maharashtra corners 1/3 of CSR funds, should it? Is that a credit or a negative? Not for Maharashtra, but for the country. Should India's most developed state, one of 28, corner 1/3 of the total CSR spend? How much do all the sisters, the 8 sisters of the Northeast, together get? What percentage? 0.9. The 8 sisters of the Northeast get 0.9% of the funding. One state gets 34%. Why? And not to be outdone, after Maharashtra come the states like Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka. What happened to Chhattisgarh? What happened to Madhya Pradesh? What happened to Bihar? What happened to Jharkhand? What happened to Rajasthan? That's where the real poverty lies. Should we not have more spending there? The erstwhile Planning Commission, now Niti Aayog, has identified for us aspirational districts. Few corporates are now saying that at least a certain part of our CSR budget should go to those aspirational districts, away from the state which is our headquarters or the main sectors of our operations. That change is slowly coming. And many ask me, Dr. Chatterjee, why don't you just bring in another legislation which says so much percentage of your CSR funds should be spent in the Northeast or spent in the aspirational districts? And I still say legislation or mandation is not the answer. We had enough of it. Can we incentivize it? Why can't we incentivize it and ask the states, in your industrial policy, can you provide incentives for corporates to come and invest in your CSR? And that's, I think, the route we are now thinking of in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Rather than have another directive, we will try and incentivize for those states which have less CSR spending. That's the way to go. What else can we do? I think trying to understand in real terms the change we have made. If we have done a project in a particular geography for a certain number of years or months, did we create any real impact? And who will tell us that? Who will tell us, did we really make an impact? And if the answer is we ourselves, you're absolutely wrong. Nobody can write his or her own report card. Corporates, like it or not, will go on with their self-promotion, if I may use the word, of the wonderful things they have done. And fine enough, I understand that. You need to. All the lives that they have touched, all the people that they have reached out to. Good. But in real terms, meaningless. Utterly meaningless. It's good corporate terminology. Unless you have third-party evaluation of what you have really done on the ground. And that's why in the 2021 revised rules, we have, at least to begin with, projects over 1 crores must be evaluated by a third party. The question that is asked now, and we're looking at as part of CSR 2.0 is, there are evaluation agencies and evaluation agencies. There are third parties and third parties. Which third parties will you engage? One. Two, in what format will they give their report? I sit on many boards. I ask evaluation agencies to do evaluations. End of the year, I get a slew of evaluation reports. I cannot compare one with the other. Everyone has used their own methods of sampling. Everyone has used their own methodologies. Some have used SROI, some have used different valuations. For my own programs, I cannot compare. Forget about comparing HSBC with Asian Paints. Not a hope in hell. So should there be a standardized evaluation methodology with a certain format? Not that there are, actual things to fill up, but at least the format should be there. And I think now in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, we are trying to move to a place where we might actually get a standardized format. So these are some thoughts I thought I would share with you this afternoon. I know I've taken up a lot of time, but it's a wonderful opportunity for me to talk to so many people. Thank you again, Bombay Chamber of Commerce, for giving you this opportunity, and I hope you're able to take this program further on. Thank you very much. I'll take them sitting down.
Yes,
if you
sir,
don't mind.
yes. Thank you, sir, for your insights. The floor is now open for a few questions.
Yeah. Can I? Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. In fact, I'm Shashi Bhushan from Navdrusti. I have one question. Now there is a trend which is seen, for the last few years. Like corporates are looking at implementing projects through their own in-house foundations. Why so? We were talking about impact assessment, but if it's a in-house foundation, what kind of impact assessment also one will do? Their own sister organization is doing.
I get your point.
Yeah.
How many people are there in a foundation?
In a
Typically, in a foundation.
Foundation
How many
about
persons
10, 15 people.
Sometimes less.
Yes.
How many projects can they implement with 6 or 7 people? 0. So what do foundations do? They channelize the CSR funding of the company, but they also reach out to implementing agencies.
Okay.
They don't themselves sit in villages for years and implement programs.
Okay.
So, correctly, corporates set up foundations. I advise many of them. But in the end, implementation is done by implementing agencies. Next question, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So, one question I have is in terms...
Introduce yourself,
Yeah,
please.
I'm Adil Kadyali from HSBC,
Hi.
part of the corporate sustainability team. A question I have is pertaining to FCRA funds and the sub-granting rule, which disallows sub-granting. So with this regulation, it makes it a bit challenging to work with grassroots organizations at the remote areas of the country. So can that be looked at?
It can. We're running into problems because of FCRA.
Yeah.
In normal course, subcontracting is pretty much the norm. Hundreds of NGOs also ask other NGOs to participate. And at the end of the day, the donor who is the corporate, wants the utilization certificates from the organization to which it released the money. FCRA has, over the last 2 or 3 years, become extremely, I think, overprotective for reasons that are also well known, because there were so many risks associated with things. But now the FCRA dust, I think, is slowly settling, I hope. And there might be an opportunity for us to rethink. But that's a very good question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There's a lady at the back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Bhavna Anjali from United Way, Mumbai. My question is, you suggested about standardization of evaluations. So, given that we have such diverse interventions, do you think it's possible to standardize that? And who will be the authority which can actually suggest that parameter for everyone to follow?
There can be no other authority than government, than the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Our thought process is fully aware that there are many thematics, many geographies, many priorities. But when we were doing BRSR, and I wrote most of BRSR myself, as you know, it cuts across. Top 1,000 companies are as varied in nature as anything else. But you can write a commonality. As I said, there won't be, tick boxes all through. But just the specific priorities that need to be assessed, that's all that we will give. They'll be more like guidelines than a specific format. Thank you.
Thank you.
This will be the last question.
Once you sit in CSR, you can go on for the whole year, I think. But yeah, sure.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ambika. I'm from Green Yatra. Our NGO is largely into afforestation and water body restoration projects, pan-India. So the question that I'm posing is largely just to have an understanding. A lot of the corporates that approach us, they have certain kind of places in mind, where the CSR activity should happen. And usually it's in their backyard. If it's a plant, it's like varied locations. And they insist that we should do it there. Now, in terms of an NGO, we have multiple activities. One is that when we are trying to get permission for land from the government bodies, the moment we tell them we have a project that we want to cater for, there is pressure. When are you starting the project? Now, we can't hold on to that land. And then these land parcels are, as per what the government wants to allocate, because they have their own obligations. But the CSR partners that we are, working with, some of them, they insist it should be in their backyard. We can't even if you want to make an impact, there should be something which tells that, okay, you are making the impact. Doesn't matter where you're doing it. So something on that from you?
From me, it would be great. But I'll ask Aloka here. She's from the corporate sector. Any change in thinking there?
Okay, Green Yatra is a partner as well. I think, I'll be very honest with you. There is no straight answer to this. And we've been working, and I think the space has evolved. For example, there was a lot of, it is the dialogue between, that's why I'm saying, know your partner is a very important piece. Why? Because you have to understand what the donor partner is looking for. And I think it's time now for also non-profits to say no. I know it's very difficult to say no to funding. I know I can tell you. But let me tell you, I have faced it. I've had a non-profit to come and say, we can't do it. And let me tell you, I think the team appreciates that more than anything else. There are different levels of maturity. One thing is a lot of people read the law in, like verbatim, because it says where you have presence, they're basically looking at, I need to do it just there.
The law doesn't say that. The law never says that where you have presence, you must do your CSR. You can do your CSR from Kashmir to Kanyakumari anyway.
Yeah.
But the natural human tendency
is
to do
where
it
you have
closer.
presence, yes. So my point is, to your point, the fact is that you need to tell them that how difficult to do. I'm just saying a lake conservation, which I know Green Yatra does a remarkable job in that. But the fact is what it entails. Not many people know. If I'm going to my board and I'm telling them, do you know for lake conservation, this is the list of approvals that you require. this is what you need. I think we don't get into the details, so those are going to be important. But to answer your question in short, it's not going to be an easy fix. But I think that dialogue between the donor and donee is going to be very important to address some of these issues. It's changing. As Dr. Chatterjee mentioned one thing, that the focus is that data is now showing that money is actually getting concentrated in certain parts. It is bound to happen where in the boardroom the discussion will be, if I want to give my money to a place where it's not required, the impact will not be there as well. So it's a journey, and I think we as both corporates and non-profits will have to go through it. But that honest conversation is going to be very important.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, audience. Thank you, ma'am and sir. Requesting Ms. Aloka Majumdar and Mr. Rajiv Anand to present a memento to our speaker. A huge round of applause, please. Requesting Ms. Aloka and Mr. Rajiv Anand and Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee to stay back on the stage for the book launch. It's now time to unveil the Bombay Chamber CSR Yearbook 2025, our very first edition showcasing 12 remarkable CSR projects of leading companies. This year, book features insightful articles that capture the spirit of responsibility, innovation, and impact behind each organization's CSR initiatives. I would like to invite our Director General, Mr. Sandeep Khosla, on the dais. I would also like to invite the representatives from all 12 companies who have been featured in the book, who can join us as I read out the companies' names in the alphabetical order in which they appear in the book. Aditya Birla Capital, Gopal Kumar, Head CSR. A huge round of applause, please. Ambuja Foundation, Anaga Mahajani, Chief Impact Officer. Axis Bank Limited, Abhijit Agarwal, Senior Vice President, Head Sustainability and CSR. Deutsche Bank, Ruchi Khemka, Head CSR. Godrej Consumer Products Limited, Ahona Ghosh, General Manager Sustainability. Hindustan Unilever Limited, Mr. Girish Langre, Senior Coordinator Livelihoods. We have HSBC India, Ms. Aloka Majumdar. We have IndusInd Bank, Matilda Lobo, Executive Vice President and Head CSR. Kotak Mahindra Group, Chetan Savla, President, Sustainability and Strategic Projects. L&T, Mabel Abraham, CSR Head. Mahindra & Mahindra, Avilash Dwivedi, CSR Head, Automotive and Farm Sector. Siemens Limited, Dr. Anand Raman Subramanian, Vice President, Head of Strategy, Sustainability CSR at Siemens Limited, Executive Coach and Mentor. A round of applause. Thank you.